Greetings! Another Monday and another Joe Lum album review. If you remember back 2 weeks ago when I reviewed Holy Diver, the debut record for Ronnie James Dio's own band, well, this week I review his first album with Black Sabbath, following the dismissal of one Ozzy frickin' Osbourne. And that album is Heaven and Hell. When you're done, feel free to watch past album review episodes on my playlist, which is in the description box. Let's get down to business. The initial sessions for what would become Heaven and Hell began with Ozzy Osbourne following the conclusion of Black Sabbath's Never Say Die tour. The band convened in Los Angeles for 11 months to record a new record, a process described by guitarist Tony Iommi as a highly frustrating, never-ending process. Osbourne has stated that he had become fed up with the experimentation on the preceding albums Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, referring to the band's earlier, heavier sound. In his memoir, Iommi revealed that he still possesses a recording featuring Osbourne singing an early version of what would become Children of the Sea, with different lyrics and a totally different vocal melody. Ronnie James Dio was introduced by Iommi back in 1979 by Sharon Arden, aka Sharon Osbourne. Initially, Dio and Iommi discussed forming a new band rather than the continuation of Black Sabbath. The pair met again by chance at the Rainbow on the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles later that year. Both men were in similar situations. Dio was seeking a new project, and Iommi required a vocalist. It must have been fate, Dio recalled, because we connected so instantly. The pair kept in touch via telephone until Dio arrived at Iommi's Los Angeles house for a relaxed getting-to-know-you jam session. On that first day, the duo finished Children of the Sea, a song Iommi had abandoned prior to Osbourne's firing. According to Dio himself, Sabbath was a band that was floundering, and with my inclusion in it, we pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps, cared a lot about each other, and knew that we could do it again, especially under the banner of a band that has been so successful. Black Sabbath's lineup was in a state of chaos as the band prepared to enter the studio to record what would become Heaven and Hell. Not only had the band replaced its longtime singer, but drummer Bill Ward was battling personal issues that would see him also leave the band within months. Demo recordings for the album include song titles like Lady Evil Blues, Slapback, Lord She's Handsome, and an earlier version of the title track. Featured Jeff Nichols on bass, as longtime bassist Geezer Butler was going through a divorce and his future with the band was in question. When Dio first joined the band, he doubled for a short time as bassist and singer, having played bass in the band Elf in the early 70s. At one point, Iommi contacted close friend Frank Zappa for help finding a bassist. Zappa offered his bassist for the Heaven and Hell sessions, but Iommi preferred a permanent member. Eventually, Butler returned to the band, and Nichols stayed on as the band's unofficial keyboardist. Former Elf and Rainbow bassist Craig Gruber also rehearsed with the band, though the extent of his involvement is unclear. In a 1996 interview, Iommi stated that Gruber participated only for a bit. Gruber has stated that his contribution was quite substantial. He says he co-wrote most of Heaven and Hell songs, and that it was he and not Butler who played bass on the album. Despite not being credited for his contributions, Gruber says that he and the band nonetheless reached a suitable financial agreement. Iommi conceded in his 2011 autobiography that Gruber had indeed recorded all the bass parts on Heaven and Hell, but Butler had re-recorded them upon his return, without listening to Gruber's bass tracks. Gruber later stated in an interview in 2009 that he only helped write Die Young. Personal issues aside, drummer Bill Ward was not completely happy with the direction Black Sabbath was moving in creatively. Heaven and Hell wasn't for me, wasn't a turning point, as he recalled. Heaven and Hell was the beginning of a new band, of which I had no idea what band I was in. It was almost like Ron was capable of coming up with lyrics that seemed to fit his idea of how Black Sabbath ought to be. And I sensed a kind of unrealness about the lyrics. My favorite song on Heaven and Hell was a blues song that we did, Lonely is the Word. And that seemed to be real. But things like Lady Evil, they seemed almost like bandwagon type lyrics. Lonely is the Word. I definitely like playing that song and Children of the Sea. I did like playing that too. I thought Ronnie was a very good singer. Heaven and Hell was recorded at Miami's Criteria Studios, in which the band recorded Technical Ecstasy, and Ferber Studios in Paris, France. Dio suggested that the band hire producer Martin Birch, who he had worked with as a member of Rainbow in the 70s. Birch was Sabbath's first outside producer since the band parted ways with Roger Bain following 1971's Master of Reality, with Iommi primarily producing the band's albums since that point by himself. Tony Iommi stated in his memoir that he wrote, "Ozzy would sing with the riff, just listen to Iron Man and you'll catch my drift. His vocal melody line copies the melody of the music. There was nothing wrong with that, but Ronnie liked singing across the riff instead of with it, come up with a melody that was different from that of the music, which musically opens up a lot more doors. He didn't want to sound like he was knocking Ozzy, but Ronnie's approach opened up a new way for Tony to think as a songwriter himself." Let's go ahead and take a look at the track listing. All the music written and arranged by all members of Black Sabbath themselves, with Dio doing all the lyrics. The album's opener, Neon Nights, clocks in at 3:53. Children of the Sea clocks in at 5:34. Lady Evil clocks in at 4:26. Heaven and Hell clocks in at 7 minutes even. Wishing Well clocks in at 4:07. Die Young clocks in at 4:45. Walk Away clocks in at 4:25. And Lonely is the Word, the album closer, clocks in at 5:51. Heaven and Hell is the ninth studio album from British heavy metal band Black Sabbath. Released on the 18th of April of 1980, it was the first Sabbath album to feature Ronnie James Dio on lead vocals, replacing Ozzy Osbourne. Produced by Martin Birch, the album was a commercial success, particularly in the US, where it reached number 28 on the Billboard 200 chart and was certified platinum. In the UK, it sold well enough to be certified silver by the British phonographic industry in April of 1982. It was the band's highest charting album since 1975's Sabotage, and the third highest selling Black Sabbath record behind Paranoid and Master of Reality, respectively. My overall rating for Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell is an 80 out of 100. Now keep in mind, I like the songs Neon Nights, Children of the Sea, and Heaven and Hell. I did not care for the rest of the songs on this record at all. While some critics insisted that Dio's addition to Black Sabbath altered the band, although Dio could belt with the best of them, Sabbath would never be the same. According to Tony Iommi in his autobiography, we were doing big shows and it was difficult for Ronnie to go out there and stand in front of people who had seen Ozzy in that spot for 10 years. 10 years. Some of the kids hated it and they'd shout Ozzy, Ozzy, but eventually Ronnie would win them over. Now, that would last until 1982 when Ronnie did not like the mixing of Live Evil, so that led to his departure from Black Sabbath and started his own band, which we got Holy Diver out of it. So, and I've covered Holy Diver on my album review series. It's in episode 31, I believe. This has been Joe Lum's album review.
Don't